tidal waves. I want to see the ground give way. I want to watch it all go down.
I'm a freshman in college. I've had more than just one paranormal encounter, but this is by far the worst. I attend an all-girls Catholic school, and it's almost 100 years old with cemeteries on campus for the nuns we have. That's not relevant to this story, but I just wanted to provide details. Anyway, it was about 10 PM on a weekday when I started getting bubble guts. I had to use the restroom, and I mean use the restroom. I hate going number 2 in the restroom on my floor because someone is always in there. Before I tell you this next part, I just want to say that I've been doing this for a very long time and never had any problems until that day. I use the restroom in the basement. I promise the basement doesn't look like what you think it does. It looks decent, and it connects to the first floor via a small staircase. So I was never afraid. Not only that, but the restroom down there is pretty nice and clean. When the elevator brought me down to the basement, I walked in, getting ready to do my business. When I opened the bathroom door, I noticed a stall door was closed. I was surprised because in all my times doing this, no one was ever in here besides another freshman teammate of mine who did the same. Immediately thinking it was her, I peered under the stalls to see her blue Crocs. Except, there was nothing there. No feet. I figured someone got embarrassed that I walked in and picked up their feet or something like that. I decided to leave them alone, and as I turned my back to leave, the toilet paper in that stall started getting yanked out. It was being pulled out so fast, it made its container shake, making a loud noise. My heart picked up its pace, but I convinced myself that someone was in there and was just now in a rush. I left and headed towards the elevator. After I pushed the button, the toilet paper stopped. It was taking forever, and just as I was losing my patience, I heard the stall door from inside the restroom fly open. It flew open, as if someone had kicked it open. At this point, I knew the stairs were the smart option. The stairwell is located right next to the elevator, so I wasted no time. I opened the basement door, and just as I stepped into the stairwell, the bathroom door opened. But again, as if someone had kicked it open with enough force to make it hit the wall. My brain was telling me that it was just a person who was in a rush, but my body didn't let me turn around to check. Just as I had made it up the first flight of stairs, the worst thing happened. The basement door that I had just walked through swung open, again, as if someone had kicked it open. Following that, loud, heavy, and fast footsteps were coming up after me, and they were moving quickly. I was afraid, but didn't let it get to me. I had already passed the first floor door, and I only lived on the second floor, so I started running. The other footsteps seemed to be echoing so loud throughout the stairwell. I was getting my keys ready to open my floor door. When I got to it, I unlocked the door while hearing the footsteps get closer and louder. I ran inside and bolted to my room door, the first door on the left wing. I put my back against my room door and waited. Just a second later, the same loud footsteps ran through the hall and sounded like they stopped dead in the middle. I poked my head around the corner, expecting to see my teammate pranking me, but there was nothing except the stairwell door closing. I ran to the middle of that area to look down the right wing hall, and there was still nothing. I still tell myself that this was just a person who was in a rush and just didn't see them. The sound of the toilet paper and the sound of the fast, heavy footsteps haunt me when I think about them. I'm uneasy and unsure about the whole incident. The only thing I'm sure about is that I'll never go back to that restroom again.
At my school, there's a toilet door that doesn't open. In the boys' toilet on the first floor, the innermost toilet stall. The door is sealed tight and doesn't budge at all. Some of my classmates say it's just a converted storage room or something. There are plenty of strange rumors about it though. It's eerie. Apparently, if you knock on the door, someone or something knocks back, even though there should be no one in there. If you ask, "Is anyone there?" apparently, you'll get a reply. And this is just a couple of the creepy rumors. All the kids at school talk about it. One day my friends and I wanted to see if there was any truth in these rumors, so as the sun set, we decided to head to the toilets on the first floor. There wasn't anything especially different about the toilets on this floor. They were the same layout and design, but there was something about the atmosphere that felt a little different. Perhaps it was our anticipation, but I don't think it was. The innermost toilet door, like the rumors said, wouldn't budge. We tried to heave it open, but it seemed like it was sealed shut. We tried going into the adjoining toilet stall and climbing up to get a peek over the top, but that bit above the toilet stall had been boarded up. We came to a dead end. "Well, someone knocked then," one of my friends said. Another one of my friends, let's call him A, took on the dare. A approached the toilet stall and knocked. The bathroom fell into an eerie silence. It felt cold in there. For a while, we waited for a response, but there wasn't one. We were kind of disappointed. "Try asking if someone's there," one of my friends called out to A. "Is anyone there?" The only sound we heard was the steady drip of the bathroom tap. "Looks like the rumors were fake then. Looks like the rumors were fake then," A said while breaking the silence. We all laughed and it eased the tension a little. "Let's go then, guys," A said, and B started whistling some tune or other as we turned to leave. I didn't want to admit the impossible, but it sounded like the door opened. No one wanted to turn around. "I think the door's open," A said. Still, none of us turned around. I was the closest to that stall. I tried to shake my fear off and began to turn to face it. At that time, my friend began to scream and he ran out of the bathroom. A and I ran after him. We called up to him and he was sat on the stairs with his head in his hands. "What happened? Did you see something?" A asked. "There's something in that stall," he said. "What?" I asked. "Something like an altar for worshipping. It was covered in blood. Dry blood," he said. "Really? In a toilet stall?" "It's true." We all headed back into the bathroom. We crept in side by side. I really didn't want to go back in there, but the other two did. When we got back in there, we found the toilet stall was shut again. Once more, we tried to heave it open, but it wouldn't budge. We went home, very confused. After about a week, my friend, the one who saw the strange altar in the toilet stall, approached me with a problem he'd been having. "At night, no matter where I am, whenever I go to the toilet, someone knocks at the door. I asked my family, but they said they're not pranking me. Every night, I don't want to go to the toilet at night anymore. Something's followed me from that stall." It sounded like whatever was happening to him wasn't going to stop either. Anyway, A and I are going to head over to his house tonight, try to see if we hear the knocking too. Hopefully, he's just hearing things, but who knows? Note: there have been no further posts by this author.
This happened in 1998. I was then working as a salesgirl in a boutique which sells Muslim traditional ladies' clothes at Golden Landmark Shopping Center, which is located around Arab Street. That night, around 9:30 p.m., me and my senior colleague, Shikin, were cleaning up and are about to close the shop. Shikin was 4 months pregnant at that time. As we were about to close, Shikin excused herself to go to the ladies. She went alone, but a minute later she rushed back, looking pale and shaken. She told me to close the shop quickly and go back home. So I pulled down the shutter, and we made our journey home together. We take the same bus. As we were walking outside the building, Shikin revealed to me what she had seen a while ago. She told me that as she was about to enter the ladies, she saw a very pretty Malay lady who was wearing a 1950s style baju kebayas outfit and a selendang standing inside. The Malay lady was adjusting her selendang in front of the mirror. As Shikin walked inside, all of a sudden the Malay lady turned her head sharply and looked at her. The Malay lady's eyes were big, and she was staring straight at Shikin's eyes. Shikin was stunned on why the lady had to look at her like that. As they stared at each other's eyes, it was then that my colleague noticed that the Malay lady was wrapping the selendang tightly around her own neck, as though she was trying to strangle herself with the selendang. All the while her unblinking eyes continued to stare into Shikin's. Shikin found some courage to turn around and go back to the shop to where I was. There was really something not right about the Malay lady, and it frightened her. The next day I learned that Shikin was hospitalized, as she suffered from miscarriage. What was strange was when the doctor informed Shikin that the unborn fetus strangled itself with her umbilical cord. Shikin resigned after that, but I still keep in contact with her, and to this day, she still believes that the lady in the toilet had something to do with her miscarriage. The way the Malay lady wrapped her selendang tightly around her own neck seems to show the fate of Shikin's unborn baby. My mother says that the Malay lady was a Pontianak.
Last year, a branch of family-friendly places popular with NS men and soldiers was undergoing a renovation, but a portion of it was still opened to the public. There was one night, roughly after 9 o'clock. I needed to use the washroom. Me and my friend drove in from the car park, and my friend waited in the vehicle. I went in from the car park front counter, where there is a cash-up, top-up machine and a security officer sitting behind his desk. I took a lift up to the second floor, or the third floor, where the Chinese restaurant was. If you guys could recall the layout, once you come out from the lift, then you turn right, and there's the Chinese restaurant. You walk further up, and there's a public washroom. During that night, I exited the lift, and all the air around me was still, and the area was dark. Nobody was on that floor, and the restaurant wasn't open. It was very quiet, and there wasn't any breeze. I proceeded into the public washroom, and unexpectedly, no one was in the washroom. I proceeded with my business, washed my hands, and exited the toilet, heading back to the lift. As I was about to reach the lift and press the down button, I heard very distinctly a door slamming behind me. Instinctively, I recognized the sound of the cubicle door slamming in the toilet. I froze for a second, but acted like nothing has happened, and I pressed the down button and waited for the lift to bring me to the car park. That slamming sound was heard again. It was as if someone was in the toilet slamming a cubicle door hard. The lift arrived, and I calmly walked in and pressed for the basement. As the lift door closed, I could hear the cubicle doors still being slammed. I reached the car park and asked the security guard whether anyone was on the second floor. He looked at me and told me that the premises is under renovation. No one's on that floor. I asked him whether he was sure. He looked at me again and asked if I was okay. So I replied to him there might be some activity on the second floor, and then he gave me a strange look. I walked back to my car, and my friend looked very surprised and commented that I looked quite pale, and I was drenched with perspiration.
One night, our parents went out, thus leaving my younger and I at home alone. That did not pose any problem for us, as we were used to it until what happened to us that fateful night. My brother and I decided to check out what was happening outside the kitchen windows. I cannot recall why we did that now. Nevertheless, neither one of us switched on the kitchen or toilet lights, but the kitchen was dimly lit by the light cast from the living room. All windows in my flat were usually shut when dusk arrived, and the main wooden door in the living room remained shut at night unless my father was home. We lived on the 9th floor. My brother and I were huddling together and fixated by what we saw downstairs at the badminton court from the kitchen windows. Normally, this court was used for many various functions by the residents here, or the residential committee, for events like funerals and dinners. While being entertained, my brother and I suddenly heard a soft-spoken female voice emanating from the dark kitchen toilet on our right. She was calling out my brother's name. My brother and I got the shock of our life and scampered hurriedly to the living room like headless cockroaches. Once we felt safe, we looked at each other puzzled at what had just happened. We decided to call our parents at this house where they were visiting. At that time, mobile phones were unheard of. My mum advised us to stay put and wait for them to reach home. Up till now, no one in my family could explain the phenomenon that my brother and I experienced. This story happens in a camp in the northern part of Singapore when I was still a recruit. Our bunk is on the 4th floor. The toilet was located next to the staircase. It was believed that someone in the past had hanged themselves inside the toilet. One night, my buddy and I went to the toilet. It was around 2 a.m. I had looked at my watch earlier before going to the toilet. The toilet is designed in a way that, on the right, if the entrance is the washing area where we washed our clothes, further down is the bathing cubicle. There is a long mirror on the left of the entrance. The urinal is straight in from the entrance. Along the way to the urinal are the cubicles for doing business. When we reached the toilet, we went straight to the urinal. Before we could finish what we were doing, my buddy and I heard someone washing clothes. The tap was running, and there was the sound of scrubbing of clothes. The sound was really convincing. We were shocked. How could there be anyone washing clothes in the middle of the night? We quickly finished what we were doing and went to have a look. The washing area was empty. We looked at the mirror and saw no one. We believed that ghost reflections will be seen through the mirror. Just when we were about to rush off, we heard someone bathing inside the bathing cubicle. Water was rushing out from the tap and splashing onto the floor. We immediately rushed out of the toilet and back to our bunk.
During my time in Tekong, I was in Mohawk Company, and there was this week which my company was scheduled for a round the island prowl. Kenna arrowed with a few others. I hadn't received my M16 yet, so I was assigned with a baton and a rattan shield. I tag-teamed with a buddy who recently injured his leg during training, so movement was a bit slow for him. There were 2 different time slots for the prowl, just after sunset and past 2 a.m. To cut a long story short, fast forward to the 2 a.m. prowl. I finished my prowl and went to the toilet in the jetty to wash up and fill up my water bottle from my SBO. It was a humid night and very sweaty and uncomfortable. The toilet was quite modern, with adequate lighting. There were 3 cubicles, which was behind me at the time, and I was facing the mirror and the basins. When I was almost done refilling my water bottle, I heard a sound from one of the cubicles. The toilet had flushed. The doors were half ajar, and since I stepped in, no one else came in. I ignored the flushing sound. Maybe I missed one of the guards, I thought, while looking at the mirror, which reflected the 3 cubicles. Whoosh. And then again a few seconds later. Whoosh. 3 bloody flushes from 3 cubicles. Further to the first flush, I heard 2 others come from the other cubicles. Who the hell was in here? I asked myself. I finished topping up my water bottles, and I fastened them to my pouches, and then I heard another set of sounds. Like a clock, clock, clock sound, repeatedly and rapidly. I grabbed my baton and faced the 3 cubicles. One by one, I gave it a light kick to see what the hell was going on in there. There was no one in there. The flushing sound ceased, one after another, when I went in. I guessed that it ran out of water to flush, but that clock, clock, clock sound remained. I took a step forward and nearly went weak at both knees. Right in front of me, the metallic push button for the flush kept being depressed, and when extended, it was depressed again. I took a few steps back and saw all 3 cisterns' push buttons were rapidly moving up and down, like something or someone was in there, at the time pushing the buttons repeatedly. I grabbed my gear and I fast marched out of there.
This happened to my ex-colleague in my ex-company. She sat beside me in the office, and she is someone who is very interested in Feng Shui. One day, I saw a new Feng Shui item on her desk. Something that looked like a coin sword. Out of curiosity, I casually asked her what the sword was for. Then she whispered, "Shh, I'll tell you later. Got many people here now." I sensed there was something she was about to tell me. So later, when not many people were around, I asked her again. She asked me to come nearer, and she started to tell me the story. My girlfriend's boyfriend picked her up from work every day, but he always arrived at our office late, i.e. 9 p.m, because he worked far away from our office. So usually, my colleague would end up alone in the office. We used to work on another floor, but recently our department moved into this new floor. She said one night, she went to the ladies' toilet at the other end of the floor. While doing her business inside the toilet had the usual plastic cubicles inside. She heard a tapping sound from the next cubicle. Tap, tap, tap. So she came out of her cubicle, only half finishing her business, to check whether anyone was outside. Nobody else was in the toilet, and the tapping sound stopped immediately after she came out. So she went back to the cubicle again to finish her business. This girl dared to say, "Don't disturb me." She said she thought it better to give a fierce warning to show that she was not afraid. Well, she told me she's got the 6th sense and a bit of a third eye. So she said she was not very scared about the supernatural stuff. Immediately after she went back into the toilet and continued her business, the tapping sound started again. Only then did she start to feel goosebumps on her neck. Soon, she felt something worse. Every cubicle had a light on top of it. She felt that the light on her cubicle slowly dimmed as though there was something floating on top of her staring down at her. So the entity probably covered the light. That was why the light suddenly dimmed. This girl pretended to be brave some more, although inside, she was scared like crazy. She said she coolly finished her business, didn't wash her hands, but casually walked out of the toilet. Right after she opened the toilet door and walked out, she ran so fast like a madwoman to her workstation. She quickly packed and waited for her boyfriend outside the office. Since she had to wait for her boyfriend to pick up every night, she then started to avoid going to the toilet. But if she really couldn't hold it anymore and needed to go do her business, she said she tried to finish quickly and practically always ran out of the toilet. She would then hide at her workstation where she had put the coin sword to protect her from those supernatural things. Story 2. This was another colleague's friend. She told me about this story because I told her about my ex-colleague's toilet tapping sound. She said, tapping sound in the toilet again. And she told me that her friend also experienced something similar. But her friend worked in another office. That office was old and rumored to be dirty. Same thing, her friend went to the toilet. Inside the toilet, she heard a tapping sound coming from the last cubicle, which was next to her cubicle. According to my colleague, it is best to avoid going into the last cubicle in any toilets. Don't know how true that is. Anyway, back to the story. The last cubicle was already out of action for a long time. So definitely, there was no one in that cubicle because it had become a little storing place for brooms and pails, etc. But this girl also pretended to be brave. She dared ask, "Anyone there?" Of course, nobody replied. If someone replied, I think she would have surely fainted. She finished her business and came out. She washed her hands and went out of the toilet casually. Very brave girl, because she's not afraid yet. But then, the tapping sound actually followed her. Only then did she become afraid. At first, she thought that maybe the old building would have some kind of sound, but how can that sound follow her out of the toilet until she reached her workstation? Worse than that was, she started to hear as though there were many people talking. The next day she told her other colleagues. They said that maybe because she always stayed late in the office, alone, the people probably one fine night decided to invite her to join their party. I don't know whether to laugh or feel scared. Moral of the story? Don't be too hardworking and stay late in the office.
When I was in primary 6, my school had these 2 toilets, boys and girls, beside the hall, which were locked since I was in primary 1. Teachers said that these 2 toilets are damaged and beyond repairs, and at the time we actually believed our teachers. Here's what happened to me. I was helping out at the school hall on an activity when I felt that nature was calling, which is kind of an urgent call of nature, if you get what I mean. So I rush out into the hall, and to my surprise, the boys' toilet outside the hall wasn't locked anymore. Oh, I thought, wow, it's actually finally been repaired. I rushed in without much hesitation, and as I was in such a rush, I didn't bother to switch on the lights or the fans inside. I finished my business, and I went to wash my hands, but no water. I turned the lights on. When I turned right towards the door, about 10 meters away, the door slammed shut before my eyes. I was in shock, but I didn't dare look anywhere. I just ran straight at the door, and luckily, I was able to open it. I then ran to my friends who were still at the school hall and told them what had happened. They were all curious and asked me to show them, and they followed me back to the bathrooms to take a look for themselves. When we got back to the door was locked and unopenable.
For me, I think this is the only scary incident I ever came across. It was at my school, and I was currently in my math class. I had to go to the toilet, so I got the teacher's permission and went off. The bathrooms were on the same floor as my math class. Each floor in each block in our school has 2 bathrooms, boys and girls. I was on the first floor, middle. Anyway, I entered the girls' bathroom, and there were 2 cubicles. One was on the back wall, and another was in front of it. I went into the one in front of it in hopes that nothing bad would happen to me, since the back cubicle was also in a cornered area, plus darker. When I went in, I heard sniffing sounds, as though it was a girl crying, around my age or older. I heard no tears or anything else, but just sniffs. I exited the cubicle and proceeded to wash my hands. Weirdly enough, I saw that the back cubicle door was open. When I first entered, I swear I thought it was closed. If the sniffing person went out, I heard nothing open, nor did I hear any footsteps then. I just ignored the cubicle thing and went to the sink. Strange, one of the mirrors had black stuff stuck on the bottom parts of it. And yet, I didn't know what it was, so I avoided washing my hands around that mirror's area. I went to the mirror next to it, which was clean. The soap dispenser was also broken, so I couldn't wash with soap. I just wet my hands, dried them, and went out. I then suddenly ran into a cleaner by mistake. We both said sorry and then passed through. I went to return to my maths classroom, and then the bell went to mark the end of the period. I had another period of maths to go. When I told one of my other friends later that day, she responded that it could have been most likely a ghost. To me, I'm still totally unsure. What do you think? Girl or ghost?
Hello watchers and listeners, thank you so much for watching. A huge thank you to Asiaghosts.com for kindly allowing me to use their stories in this video and other videos. Be sure to go over to check out their site if you're interested in reading more stories similar to those I told today. If you'd like to help support this channel, I have links to both my Patreon and Teespring account in the description below. So be sure to check them out if you're interested at all. And as always, the biggest thank you to all of you who continue to support me. I truly do appreciate it so much. And remember,
Papa loves you.